Hello everyone, welcome back to the day 2. This is Karthik from iTeLearn. Thank you so much for tuning back. So team, what is it that we're going to continue with in our day 2? Let's take a look at what we did in our day 1. Then we're going to come to the day 2. So we did a lot of it and stored that within our Excel file team. So let's take a look at this. This should give us a good perspective overall. So we initially started writing it down as a simple manual process as a user story, how a user navigates through. But then we quickly realized that giving half-baked information is not sufficient even for manual process. So we need to be more precise in defining what needs to be executed or performed. And that's when we started putting it into a better format, and we created the next sheet called manual test cases. So in this, primarily what we have done is we have opened the browser, gone to the application, tried to log in using some fictitious information and expecting this message to come up. And the same process, we also did a record and put that within Selenium IDE. So how did this happen, team? So this was very easy for us. We let the project, Selenium IDE, create everything as a project that we created and kept it under this folder. And then we said that this is my executing test of the first test case in login 01. So out here, everything in green passed yesterday. We're going to take a final look at it. The one in red basically says that step failed. So how is it that Selenium IDE recognized all this information and stored it so that it could repeat this from a manual process to an automated process? So the three key elements, team, that Selenium IDE has kind of used to make this happen is the command, the target, and the value. When we are talking about moving a manual process to an automation process, one of the key elements or the three decisive factors that we need to always keep in mind are efficiency, reusability, and accuracy. So how do these three components talk about these things, Tim, and how do they achieve it? Now, when we talk about efficiency, reusability, or accuracy, it is all got to do with each step being executed. So one step is one line at a time, and that is usually signified but by one or sometimes 2-3 lines of code, and how that gets kind of executed. So in our case, the most important thing is manual to automation. For us, the whole process is around the concept of, let me take a pen. What is it that we need to do? Where we need to perform that specific action, and any data that I additionally need to do. Because at the end of it, all we are doing is on an application under test, which has a web UI that this can understand. If it is built on any other technology platform and not a web-based application, Selenium will not work for a team. Selenium only works for web-based applications, applications which are hosted on a server. You can view it on a browser. All right, that is what Selenium is good at. Now, so the three important things are what, where, and data. Now let's try and understand these factors, team. How are they put together within Selenium IDE? The what is a very simple thing, team. It's like an action. It's like an action or a step that we perform as a manual user. So imagine this, team. How do we interact, a human interacts with a computer? So a human's interaction with a computer is using two or three main things, team. One is the keyboard. Third, they have the mouse. And fourth, you have your display. All right. Now, these are the three methods using which you're able to perform or pass commands to as a input from a human onto the system. For a Selenium IDE perspective, and what is IDE team? I don't think I've mentioned that in a previous class. IDE is basically day two. IDE is your integrated, oopsie, development environment. So what is an integrated development environment? This term resonates a lot for web application or any application developers team. When you look at how they do programming, at the end of it, any kind of a Java code will look like a simple text at the back end. Let me see if I can pull up something out here. Ting, 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 ting. Should be there. Test runs are there. Species, say drive, orange has anything in it? No, it doesn't have this code. Sorry. Just will quickly see a few old ones. It's been a while. I must have done something here. CSDT, um, KDF, for example, source. Yep. So, sorry for the background drawing team or foreground drawing. Just ignore that for a minute. I still need the diagram. So if I quickly open this using a notepad, any application with a code that is behind it, that code can be viewed, edited using a simple notepad team. Any of the code, be it Java, C Sharp, Python, and so on, HTML, and so on. But if you notice, the way this is plain text. There is not too much of assistance in it. Integrated development environments, for example, like Eclipse, all right? Eclipse is popular for Java developers, all right? For Selenium IDE, for Selenium, it has its own IDE to record, build, and execute tests, okay? So now what is this IDE? How does it do things differently? So when you look at a code, your IDE helps you to maintain that code, actually write the code, maintain it, and execute it in a much more efficient way. Team. In about 3-4 sessions, we will start, oh, actually not in towards this training, but more towards the next one, you will start using a lot of Eclipse in it, team. And you will see how many features that has got. The same thing with the Selenium IDE, it has got a lot of UI and it got a lot of features. Features like adding new tests, executing them at various speeds, having multiple test cases created, looking at what has happened at each level, saving them, recording them, editing them as needed, and so on. So all these features, instead of making it tough for the end user, are neatly organized in this Selenium IDE or Integrated Development Environment. So within the world of Selenium, oopsie, Selenium has levels. I look at it as 2 or 3 levels, team. One is IDE, very basic, hardly used in real projects, good to verify element IDs. Okay, that's what we use a Selenium IDE for. Then we have something called as a WebDriver team. Great for directly connecting to browser drivers. We'll talk a lot of these. Customizing code, automation code, scripts rather. /code and building frameworks, which is an absolutely key thing that we evolve with. Of course, there is Selenium Grid that helps to basically execute tests across a set of machines in a distributed network. So if I have a distributed farm of systems and I'm able to connect to them, ping them locally, then I can take a test and run it at those segments. And that becomes the grid portion. And the final most important thing, which we will emphasize a lot, is framework. How to design, build, execute, and maintain various automation frameworks. And these are mostly at code level themes. And for those of you who's scared at a coding level, just stay on. Look at some of the free Java trainings that we've done recently. You'll like them. It's pretty easy, team. It's just the way we try and put it and learn onto it. So, team, you need to subscribe to youtube.com/qtp elearn. I just uploaded yesterday's video there. Once you subscribe to a channel, then anything that we are doing, you will get instant access to it. So primarily a lot of videos, team, introductory level. So please do be there. So to get what we're doing, the bunch of videos that we have done, oopsie, in so whatever we keep doing, the initial 2-3 sessions or 4 sessions as demo videos are put on our channel, team. So they added newest, data added newest. Let's look at it this way. Sorry, the diagram is still there. So creepy for us. So keep it. So a lot of Java related programs. We had to unlist some of them, team, but core Java up to date, and we put it online, but it's all for members on the website. But some of the basic ones are there, team. You should watch them. You will get a great idea of how coding can be learned. It'll make you easy. It'll make you feel a lot more relieved about things. Okay, great. So where were we? We were back in our IDE and we were trying to understand what this are, what, where, and data. So the what is very simple, team. Now let me actually erase these drawings so that I've done it then only. All right. So let's focus on one at a time. What? Now the commands within Selenium IDE, the same command is also here. And you'll see target out here and value out here. And this field is basically you can write your own description, team. Okay. Please do note, I do not expect you all to be an expert at Selenium IDE with the fact that you're going to be spending your entire career on it. No, you would be more of getting to know automation, and this is a first step for us. Once we build the foundation in a very strong manner on Selenium IDE, we have to move on to WebDriver and custom coding. Okay, but now let's look at what do we have out here. These are the list of commands, team. A lot of times, all I have to do is look at the commands. So if I look at the first step, it is saying something called as open, then target is just a / value is nil. So what is it trying to do? Whenever I have a question about a command, if I am unaware, then what you could do is use the reference. A reference is a help guide on each of these commands and what it will take as inputs. Okay, so this says that opens a URL and waits for the page to load before proceeding. This acts as both relative and absolute URLs. So enion.com, which is written here, is my base URL. From that home URL, from that base URL, if I just add a /, I'll go to home. If I slash / and then orange, then I'm going to the orange sign-in page directly, and so on. So that command called open lets me open a web application in that URL, navigates to there. All right. Now, that is how we get about understanding, team. A bunch of about 30, 40 main keywords, or what I call them, what is called here as command is what we need to focus on. Now let's look at the next one, set window size. Can I copy and paste this? Control C, Control V. Can I not? I'm unable to copy paste a test case. I don't know if it's a new thing or I'm doing something wrong. If I look at for the source, where did I put it? Was it in desktop? Cell VS. Side file will open there. Again in IDE. That's fine. All I was looking at, what was it trying to do? I lost. Yeah, duplicate this test case because I could just make a quick change to it. It used to be possible. See, if I right click here, there's certain commands for them. I can cut, copy, paste, delete steps. I was earlier able to do the same, even rename test cases and so on. Maybe it's something that is gone in this latest version. We'll check that. Let's see. Anyways, now the next command that you see, team, is set window size. And if you notice, it is basically giving the X and Y in terms of how many pixels that it is going to go. How big is the display size? And is it trying to maximize it to the full screen based on the resolution? Now, if this is not essential at any time, we have the option to change it, team. And like I was saying, for everything, look at the reference as we go along. I will expose you to a few, the most important few that will get you going. But as you keep practicing on various projects, you'll have to do more. So sometimes I feel these steps are non-essential, so I could delete them, but also maybe just ignore it. How do I? Okay, how about I save this as 23.7. Go to my desktop, the fourth folder. It's changing it, a few things. Ooh, why doesn't it save here? Battery is running low. What? Okay. I don't know why it's put a star at the end of it. All right. So in this test, team, I just want to delete, play around and see what is essential. We have not even come to the target aspect, which becomes very important, but we're trying to play around with the essential. Let us run this test as is before we make any changes. My speed, I'll need to reset it each time. I'll set it to something in between, so it basically shows us what's happening. And let's run this, team. Now this is how Selenium IDE executes, and let's see how it goes about doing it. So the next command, I think, is the setting the window size. I think that is what it's set to. What you see right now. Quickly plug in my system meanwhile. All right, so that's our execution, and our verified text failed. And we know the reason it failed was this text being valid email or password. Invalid email. Now let's rerun it, hoping that that's a valid test. Let's erase these drawings. Try and not interfere a lot with the application and a test with your mouse or switching between windows. Sometimes it tends to not like it. Any questions so far as we getting into things, audience? So it's performing the tasks one by one in a very simple and nice manner. It's going pretty slow as well, and also because we asked it to run the test slow. Very few attendees even today, team. I don't know if it's because it's summer, US, people are still getting into their grooves. Kids. Okay, great. So this tells me that my test ran. So the primary difference in the executions team, everything is green here, and then my overall test is a green. In the other one, everything was not green, the last one failed, and this basically said it's a fail. So my test case is basically a pass if every step in it passes. So even if one step fails, then it defeats the purpose, and that's the challenge. Now let's continue to look at Selenium IDE and what these things mean to you. Okay. So what are the commands? Let us scroll through the commands and try and understand first. So we only looking at the first column of commands, which answers the what is it that we want Selenium IDE to do. This is the instruction that we're giving to a tool that is a very, very dumb tool, but it beautifully does whatever you ask it to do. So the first is open. So while I'm going through this commands here, also read the reference out here, team. So that's where it's here. So open, we know it opens up a URL and waits for the page to load. This next is set window size, set the browser's window size, including the browser's interface. So that is what we're giving as inputs. And you'll see the second line argument says what are the arguments are nothing but inputs, team. Inputs that we provide to a process or what we call as functions. So then depending on that, it does specific activity. So if I change this input, which is 1244 by 877, so something else, then the output also will look definitely different. So let us say I make this 800. All right, something in the 800s. Let's do 800 even and 877. You'll see how that test looks different. Now, but this third step, click. What is this command called click? And what is it that we use? A keyboard, a mouse, or the monitor to be able to perform this? As a human, we basically use our mouse, team. So click is nothing but your left click on the mouse, and that is what it is performing. Uh, and then obviously there are double clicks, there's right click. Within click itself, you will see a lot of them. How do you know what are all the commands that start with click? What we do typically is just start writing click and you'll see all the commands that are linked with click. So what is click and click at? What is double click and double click at? So you understood click, right? If I say a link or a button, it will go and click on it. That is it. All right. But if I say click at a specific position, so this is basically your 0, 0 of an element, this top left corner. From there, it will take an XY coordinate. It will navigate within that button to wherever we are asking it and click there. So see, my mouse here is different from my mouse being here. Why would it be? Sometimes it becomes image sensitive testing where we need to click at a specific section, not on the whole image, but a specific section. Now, as we go along, team, you can start to play around this. Now, just change to click at, and you'll see how this changes. An element locator, and you send the XY position. So, element locator helps to locate where that element is and an XY position. So, we are just using click at. But what about the other clicks? Double click and double click at. So double click is 2 quick clicks on your mouse. Double click at 2 quick clicks on your mouse at that specific XY coordinate on that object. It could be a link, an image, a button, anything where you can click on. All right. What about the next one now? We have not yet come to targets, team. We're just looking at the command. The next one is also click. So we so far seen set window size, open, click. What about the next one? Select window. What does this do, team? And why did we get this as a method or an action for command? Why did we get this? Select window. So primarily, if you keep looking back at our application, when we go in here and click on login, it does not navigate on the same browser. It opens it in a new tab. So it needs to go to that new tab and then perform. In that level or detail of understanding is very critical for any automation tool. Which browser am I working on? Sometimes there are multiple browsers. How do I handle this specific browser on this window using a handle? um, these become critical team. So hence that keyword is saying that you're selecting a specific window and it is saying window with this handle. So each time it is probably coming up with this handle ID and it is using that. All right, so far so good. What's next? Type. Type team, sorry about that. Type team is basically a command. What is a type? Type is like not like classification that we hear. What is the type of car or type of job profile or candidate you're looking for? This is more in terms of typing, typewriter typing. So it's got a lot to do with your keyboard. Anything that you want to do as a keyboard command, we're going to use type. So typing on your regular keyboard, what do? You send whatever keys we have. It doesn't have to be just a text. It can be numbers, it can be special characters, it can be control, alt, delete, shift, whatever, enter, backspace, all of those combinations. So how does this command type work, team? Okay. For typing, what becomes important is it needs to know two things, team. So it already knows what to do. The what is type on somewhere. The next comes the where portion. Where is this specific element located? Within Selenium, everything that we are testing is a web page, which is in a HTML format. All right. And in a HTML format, we break that entire page down into something called as elements. Okay. When we open UFT in the next few days, you will notice that these elements are identified as objects within HP UFT, or sorry, Micro Focus UFT. So I have the what portion, that is to type. Now my where portion, which is like at, address of it, is out here, and that should get recognized. That recognition is done by the simple text out here. How? What does it mean by simply saying ID equals username? We will connect about a team. But just saying that this is referring to username is critical. Where am I? Application. Okay. So next comes, okay, I found out where I need to type and I know that I have to type. What is it that I need to type? There should be some data, right? Some kind of an information or text that you give so that I can type, and that goes into your third column team. So in here, your third column value has that information, and that is your username. And then similarly, you have another command called type. The ID this time is saying is password, and there is some other information here. So if I keep going down, let's see, if I keep going down on my steps, let's see next. So then comes click. Click is again something we've seen, but it's saying click somewhere else. The target is changing. See, the first click here is something CSS something. The second click is CSS something different. The third click is ID username. But we are able to match to the fact that we've entered a username, we have entered a password, and now we're, as a manual process, we were clicking here. That is my step. So that's what we're executing. Now what's there after this? Click, double click username. So, and I don't know why it did this. Would you know why, team? And looks like from my perspective, the why is it only captured some of this information additionally because I was playing around it for a while, if you remember. I was like, what? I clicked on it, it's not going on. So it looks like additional steps got generated. So how do I clean up my Selenium IDE tests? So we've done this. 1 second. Sorry, Alt F. This is 12th July. Date. So Selenium recorded tests can be modified in IDE. And how do we do that? So basically, here's my test. I saved it as a different version. So hopefully there should be one more here. Yes, so I will change this version. I'll say, you know what, don't worry about clicking so many times. I'll just delete these, right click and delete. Maybe just to delete also, see right click and you'll see delete command is just the keyboard shortcut delete. So I'm going to delete this. So I just have one click. Then again, I'm typing something. So there is this information that I don't need. Then click. See how much it has reduced. And we've changed the window size. So open and go to the base URL, just / window, click at some element target here, click on another element target here, go to different window, type username, type password, click on single button, that's the name there, and then verify text. So from 14, after little cleanup, it has come down to 9. Let's run this test now, team. Actually, I'm going to stop. That's good. See, so I've stopped this. At this point, it's saying that it is having an unknown command name provided because it does not have a window to play around. Let's make sure the speed is not too slow and rerun this. Okay, I think that is the size. See, from 800 to 877 now. Earlier it was 12 something, 100 to 877. Yes, it did click on sign in. Now the error has come, and so my test is ready. A little bit more cleaned up, a little bit more well put together. Now, we've gone through some of the commands, team. If you look at, let's say I want to add a new step at the end, there are so many commands. Add selection A and just scroll through them. You will see there will be a few dozen, team. I would not be surprised if they'll reach some 70, 80. In a similar fashion, Eniot is a tool that we've built over Selenium. So in this, you as well, you've got a lot of keywords. I think in the latest version, we've built over 110 keywords or so. So it'll be pretty interesting for you when you look at what's happening at here. And now see at the end of it, if you want to, let us say, close this browser that you open. I'm not sure, but let us see if there's a command that is saying close. There is one. Let's see, closes the current window. There is no need to close the initial window. IDE will reuse it. Closing it may cause a performance penalty on the test. So I'm just saying close. So one more step added and rerun this test. It will, yeah, resize it. Good. It is good to test applications on different sizes, team. Because what happens with them being responsive, sometimes content is broken. Those elements are so no longer accessible enough for you uh, to work around because you've resized the application. Code is now looking different. So now at the end of it, we could also close and come out of this application. So that's a complete executing test, team. I wish I was able to just copy this, Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V. No, I just thought I can change it. Now, it is a very simple uh, process in terms of creating tests. Now, if I want to create a test team on my own, writing commands is the easy portion. The section where most of us kind of falter, fail, even in a long term are targets. And we need to focus on these targets and how they are used. Targets are very simple, team. Okay, that's fine. Ting, 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 ting. So basics. It's basically information contained, um, information containing how to identify a web element uniquely. All right. So consider it this way, team. If I need to, let us say, give you a task which, let's say, asks you to go to a store and bring something, let's say simple Starbucks around the corner. If I ask you to go to a Starbucks and, hey, can you please just buy a coffee for me on the way here? What is the typical thing that you'd ask me? All right, great. Do you know the closest Starbucks to your home, or do you want me to Google Map? So I would say, hey, you know what? Don't worry. There's one on Topanga and Victory right next door. It should be pretty much seeable as you're getting closer to home. So that's a communication that I'm doing human to human, saying where that information, where that element is. Now, the most important thing is Selenium first understands the HTML and what we call as DOM, or document object model. In this, what basically happens is Selenium goes to the application, right clicks on it, assuming that we are doing it manually. What we would do is look at this page source. This is the HTML code, team. Okay, this HTML code, when you see it in a browser, is displayed here. So I could basically change anything on this page, from image to text to colors to where they are located, by changing this. This is called the source code. So the source HTML code is understood by Selenium IDE. So that is, it is good at it. Now, to identify elements, Selenium uses a few methods. But before that, how do humans identify elements in a web page and play a lot around here to practice, team? All right. This is a section I want you to really put efforts and practice a lot. Now, this is one way where I right click and look at the entire source code. But the smarter way which comes and which has evolved in these today's market is inspecting the element, team. So inspect element is a feature used by, built into almost all browsers today. A few years back, only Firefox had, with something called as a Firebug, had a Firebug add-on to do the element inspection. Okay, so what do I mean by this and how do we do it? Very simple, team. Instead of right clicking anywhere in this HTML and saying view page source, let us talk about the specific element. Where do we want Anyot to now click on? We wanted to click on Logiot, not Anyot, sorry, the Selenium ID on the login button, correct? So click there. First, let's right click on login, and then you will see this command called as inspect. Okay, so basically your right click element and then select inspect. Let's see what happens, team. So right click and inspect. Your screen will get split into two frames. In fact, 3 frames, more than 3 frames here. But what I'm interested is in this portion. Let me move my GoToWebinar somewhere else. That's okay. That's fine. All right. So let's do it again. Right click on login and say inspect. Now, team, for this, all of you, you need to have a basic knowledge on HTML. So there are two options, team. One on iTeLearn.com, there is training on HTML, and also you can go to w3schools.com. There is a HTML tutorial even out there. I'm going to change my website very, very instantly. All right, so iTeLearn, online courses, and web basics HTML. There you go. This set of videos should be sufficient for you to get started, team. Understand what HTML is to a certain knowledge. What is most important here are something we call as tags and how the structure of the code is. What are each of these tags, HTML tags, and what they represent. So watch these videos, team. It's pretty interesting, simple videos. Do look at them once. Oopsie. All right. So going back, same thing. You have the option from w3schools.com. You have the HTML tutorials here still loading up. Learn HTML. I'm just going to copy this link and put it here. Or here. All right. If you need a little bit more guided tour, videos are good. If you are fine with reading through text like this and going through some of these chapters, that's fine too. All right, self-paced or either way. Okay, great. So now what is it this inspect does? Let's go back. So when we right clicked and I went here, it is showing me a section of the code that belongs to this specific thing called login. So if I right click again, inspect, in the whole HTML code, this specific code is the one where it has the entire representation of this. All right. So what do I mean, team? Say if I look at just double click here, and instead of login, if I write log me in, observe what happens here to the application itself. Did you see that? It has changed on the application. Now, did it change on the application if you open anyauth.com? No, because it has not been reflected on the server. So locally, web developers use this inspect elements to make some quick changes. Not just this, sometimes we also go to the CSS. So out here, you will notice the CSS background color is so and so. If I change this here to, let me pick up something. All right, let's take something. And yeah, that's it. Well, what happened? Background color, ting, ting, ting. Something out here. Selected. Okay. Done. 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 Why is it not changing here? Maybe here. I don't know. I should be able to actually change it. No, it's not doing it. But primarily, a web designer, developer, or anyone application, someone who's working on the dev side of it, is looking at this and overall seeing that, okay, how do I understand about this element?
How do I change it? The way it looks, the way it feels, what should come on mouse over, on mouse out. So all of this information is provided there, team. So what is important for me is when I right click on this element in the inspect section, not on the AUT, I can copy something called as the outer HTML. So all this a, href equals, whatever you see, a little Greek and Latin got copied there, and I'm going to paste that here. And I need to understand what is this. I need to break this down. This is one element, team. The next one is when I click on log me in and it takes me to the next page, I need to understand this element. So I'll right click on this, inspect. I'll go to that specific element in that page, right click on it again, copy my outer HTML. If you notice, I'm not going to copy XPath team or anything else, just outer HTML. Remember this, each of you must write your own XPath, and that is the most important thing. So right click again, inspect, and right click, copy outer HTML and put that here. So now we will need to generate element identifiers based on about data. And what are the different uh, ways of identifying elements? One is you can use something called as ID. Two is name. I'll talk very detail about this team. It will take one session to totally go through this itself. Three is, I think, link text. There's no specific order, but again, there is some uh, importance. Partial link text. Then five, XPath. Six, CSS. Seven, class. Eight, what am I missing? Let's see, seleniumhq.org. I think that's about it. There should be something else. There something related with Windows. And I'm definitely missing one more team. But most important is this. And we have something called as an absolute and relative. All right. So we're going to explore a lot on this team. So day three, we're going to focus on knowing a little bit more on this. And for us, what will happen is when we get into other automation tools, all that we're covering here is almost the same. So this first 3 days that we've covered for 3 hours, which we would have done, we'll be able to do it in about half an hour to 1 hour for newer tools, other tools. Any questions for me, please, before I let you go for the day? And don't worry about log me in and so on, what we have. We'll change this as we keep going along. All right, everyone. So day three will be on Tuesday. I just want to make sure that all the members sign up on the new link. And if you're not yet signed up as a member, please do so. And I look forward for this and the other trainings that you'll involve into. Bye now. Bye, everyone. Take care. Thank you so much. Take care.